Hello, this is Brendan, and in this episode I'm not going to be doing any actual drawing. I'm going to just have a look at this this illustration which I just made and go through, just look over about how I did it. It's a weird illustration, but I thought that the background of how I made it is kind of interesting, or at least it is for me, because I don't know, it means a lot to me in terms of memory. A lot of the history in the way that I developed some of the techniques that I have are based on some kind of concepts, and they're not perfect, they're not good, but it's a way excuse me, it's a way of how to say, achieving a certain type of effect. And so the effect, if you can see it here, is very clear that with the trees that we have, it's going off into the background, and it's like layers, right? And so if you're not careful, or if you weren't trying to figure it out yourself, if you just let nature take its course with your eyes, you might just say, oh, it looks like there's a bunch of trees and random positions around here and there, but it's actually on several distinct layers, and I'll show that to you in a minute. The overall illustration itself it's a dwarf. And this dwarf happens to be what would you call him? A tree chopping dwarf. It might be a carpenter. So based on, if you know me at all, then you know that I have an ongoing comic called Thabostobok. Chapter 2 of that is very, very close to coming out. I have several pages done. I just need to color some stuff. But yeah, I'll be releasing that probably, maybe even like over the weekend, along with this video. So, yeah, I'm just looking at this, and he's a dwarf, and in the game Dwarf Fortress, which the comic book is also based on, in the game there's, you have to assign jobs to different dwarfs, and one of the type of jobs that a dwarf can be assigned is, I forget what it's called, a woodcutter, something like that. It basically means they go and chop down trees. So, what is even the name for that? Like a lumberjack? Would that be the correct word, or is a lumberjack a guy who works in a mill or something? I don't know. I never did that job myself. I've never even lived remotely near, nor have I seen somebody. I don't think I've ever witnessed anybody chop down an actual tree. It's kind of, a different type of skill from where I come from. But that's what this guy's job is. Now, admittedly, the type of axe that he's using is it's more of a battle axe, like you're ready to go to war. It's probably not a very realistic axe, but I hope we can allow that it's not real. This is fantasy, and I just thought that type of axe looked good for the sake of art. You'll come to find that if you be too realistic, in many situations, people actually don't like it. So I just try and make things look what I think will be more interesting. So I mean, there are people who like super realistic stuff, but anyway, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. Let's just look at the layers I did here. As you can see, I have all these locked up. The reason I have all these layers locked up here is so that you can switch the canvas. I had to say flip the entire canvas, but I don't want to flip the entire canvas, just certain layers at a time. So that layer looking at there, the top two layers, was actually a copy of all of these layers, and I'll show you that in a minute. Here's what I want to show you first of all, is to understand the point I was getting at in the beginning, where I was talking about how these are all on separate layers, right? So there's a layer full of trees. This layer right here has the dwarf himself and two trees around him, and then there's another layer. Well, this layer behind him was just some white fog mist to add for the effect. That's also very important, but well, I'll let you figure that one out for yourself. And then here we had another layer that's full of trees. And so all of the trees that are sharing a layer are also sharing the same value. That was part of the study of why I was making this how I did. This is somewhat new for me. I normally just, I draw things, and then I might outline them, and then I'll color. Not always in that order, but something like that. And this time I decided to just paint directly, and I painted silhouettes of everything, and then I went in and added detail. So let's hide all of the layers. What I started off with was a background like this, because I find a lot of illustrations will have that type of mood, And believe it or not, starting your illustration just like this is not a bad idea, because it tells us where the focus and the mood of this work is going to be at. And if you design your entire work around some simple type of concept like this, where we just know that the light source is coming from that one area, if you design everything around that, then things snap into place and they have a lot more synergy. Synergy, that might be the right word. Synergy is definitely the right word, but they, things cooperate with each other. They get along because everything is focused around one type of phenomenon, a simple, a place, a meeting place, if you will. So then I just had layer by layer build up, and I might not have went in this order, but this is how it ended up. So you have the very far distant background trees, and notice the value, how that color is just kind of blending in with the background value. Value means, of course, how light or how dark something is. Well, that's one simple way of putting it. And then we get closer, and the trees get a little bit lighter, so the value is a little higher, a little stronger. Then more here, right? And then finally, it starts to actually get a little bit dark again, and then we got really dark up close. Now, there's many reasons for why that can happen. Sometimes things will get lighter as they go away. Sometimes they'll get darker as they go away. It depends if it's nighttime, daytime, inside, outside. There's so many things that can change that, so many variables involved with that. So in this case, I'm imagining he's in the forest, and often when you're in a forest or in a woodsy place, you won't have much light. You'll be in the shade, but there'll be certain areas where there's little clearings and a lot of sun will come through, and it creates that sort of beautiful effect. And so that's a beautiful effect I was going for with this one. So you can see the area just behind him, for one reason or another, is allowing a lot of light in, and it's very bright. But if you go further away, then it's a bit more dark in the further background there. And then there's more light, of course, because eventually you have to see the sky somewhere. Or not. I could have changed how that works. I could have added more trees and it got darker and darker, but this is what I did. And notice how his face, he's looking off at us into the shadow. That has a lot of like symbolism and mood and meaning to it. But for me, it's just kind of more realistic. If every time you draw an illustration or make any kind of thing, and it's always like the spotlight is on their face and it's like, hi, my name is Tom. No, it's just not really realistic. Or it's not interesting. It doesn't tell you a story. It doesn't have any mood. Here we feel like we just caught him, and there he is. At any random moment in time, he just happens to be there. And so that's more normal, that when you're walking around, you see people, they don't always have a spotlight on their face. That's not how it is. Well, then again, with today's mobile phones, but you know what I mean. Okay, and so I did all of that, and at first, each of those layers didn't have any details on them. I only made them in silhouette. So it was just flat, like silhouette looking color. I can't, I don't think there's any way. Oh yeah, I could give you an example with, where's that? Get this layer here. I'll show you very quickly. As I select all of the blank space on this layer and invert it. No, that's, make sure that's not on sample merged. Yeah, that'll do the trick basically. Yeah. And then let me choose the original color here, and I'll show you what it looked like at first on my first draft. You see, yeah, that's right. So the first draft looked something like that. It's sloppy now because there was a lot of colors and stuff, but that's a very, very close idea. It's pretty much looked like that, except it was not as sloppy. And so then I just went in, and I was almost going to just leave it like that and say, oh, this is minimalist. It still looked cool when it was like that, but I said, nah, let me go ahead and try to fill in some details. And actually, I tried and I failed. I just quit. And I left it in my folder, and I got busy. And I came back a month later, which is like today, and finally got in, did the details. And today it just worked. I just kept going at it till it worked. And voila, I got this. Now, I wanted to keep it in black and white like that because this was a bit of an exercise for me in just playing with values. And I thought later I would add color to it, but I didn't really want to go crazy with the color because the values themselves in this digital painting or this illustration, they are what make it interesting. And I thought if I went and added a lot of color, Nah, I just wasn't feeling it. I can't see that. I just love how it looks with the values like this. So what I decided to do was to just add a hint of color to the overall thing, give it a sepia kind of look, right? So it looked like an old paper or something. And so to do that, if you don't know that in GIMP, you can right click at any point in time and say new from visible. And this is kind of hard to understand. You might not get it at first, but what it does is it makes a copy of everything you see. So all of the layers get merged into one layer, but without touching those original layers. So that's a really, really handy tool, because you can keep all of your original layers and then make a new one where it flattens everything out and just and do some work on it. So now that I have one flattened layer, I can go up here into colorize. And here you get this slider. I don't love this slider because it doesn't even tell you what color is where, but if you move it from left to right, it basically goes through the rainbow, right? You start off with your red, and it has, you can use this for reference. If you look here at the color picker, it goes from the red to purple to blue to light blue, green, I think. Let me test that there, right? This is the red and then green. Oh no, it's going the opposite. So blue to purple. Yeah, it's going the opposite from bottom to top. But anyway, you just slide it around, find the color. So we're going for a sepia effect, which I was. Then you bring it over into this like orangish area. And I'll just leave that there, right? And so now you can see if I hide this layer, all of my other original layers, they're still there separated. But when I turn it on, it's, you know, a new version of it. And after I did that, I realized, well, I played with it a little bit more with, I played with the contrast a bit and did this and that. And, you know, messed with the colors until I got it where I wanted. And then came out with this. As you can see, I didn't like this like really strong saturated version. I didn't want too much color, just a tiny little hint, and it gave me what I wanted. I think it's almost like an old photo kind of look I was going for, but it just gave it a little pizzazz. It was very subtle, but I thought that was suitable because everything else in this illustration is also very subtle. There's nothing in this illustration that tries to like jump out at you. It's just the if you want to look at the trees or zoom in, I did make tree bark on it, but it's almost the same color. You can barely see it. If you're watching this on YouTube or on a small screen, you probably didn't notice that. These ones in the front, the tree bark, the shading is a little bit stronger, and of course the shading around his body and his features and everything there is not very strong. It's not like black on white, right? It's just a subtle difference. So also with the color, I decided to keep it very subtle. And this is definitely the final version for now, at least. So I added the signature there. That'll be it. I hope, yeah, I can tell my memory is getting used up, even though I have 4 gigs here, recording at the same time. So I hope that all came through. If not, feel free to complain, but I can't redo it. I'm not redoing this video. Yeah, and so if you're new, I'll be sending this video out in a little blast. If you're new and you like this kind of stuff, I cover all kinds of stuff with GIMP, illustration, do comic books and stuff. And so if you like this, please share it with like-minded friends who would also like it. And if you want to subscribe, you can do that, of course. And then we'll see you later. Thanks a lot for watching, and see you next time.